Part 1. The Confrontation. The knock came at exactly 9:47 p.m. I remember checking the clock because Tyler had just asked me to bring him his evening medication. The sharp rapping against our front door echoed through our modest 2-story home, making me jump. We weren't expecting visitors, especially not this late on a Tuesday evening. I set down the glass of water I'd been carrying and approached the door cautiously. Through the peephole, I could make out 2 men in police uniforms, their faces stern under the harsh porch light. When I opened the door, the taller officer spoke first. "We have a warrant for your son's arrest." What? The word came out as barely more than a whisper, my mind struggling to process what I just heard. What? Why? My son? The question swirled in my head like autumn leaves caught in a whirlwind, none of them staying still long enough for me to grasp. As I stood frozen in the doorway, one of the officers smoothly wedged his foot between the door and the frame. The action was subtle but deliberate, and it sent a chill down my spine. Years of working as a high school counselor had taught me to recognize when something felt off, and right now, every instinct I had was screaming that this situation wasn't right. Feeling threatened, I tried to push the door closed, but the officer's foot remained firmly in place. "Your son is home, right? We're coming in." The second officer's voice carried an edge of impatience. Wait just a minute. My voice cracked as I pressed my weight against the door, desperately trying to keep them from entering. The wood bit into my shoulder as I braced myself against the frame, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. "Please," I begged. "I don't understand what's happening. Could you at least explain?" The taller officer pulled out a folded paper from his breast pocket, his sigh heavy with what seemed like practice weariness. "Ma'am, I understand. You probably never thought your son would commit theft." "Theft? Huh?" The word felt foreign on my tongue, as if I were speaking a language I'd never learned. "He was seen running away with stolen cash," the officer continued, his tone dripping with condescension. "We have eyewitnesses who clearly saw his face. There's no point in denying it." The late evening air felt suddenly thick, almost suffocating. Theft? My son? The same boy who spent hours tutoring younger kids in math despite his own condition? The son who insisted we donate his old soccer gear to the youth center rather than sell it? I forced my scattered thoughts into order, drawing on the same calm I used when dealing with troubled students at work. Looking directly into the officer's eyes, I spoke with absolute certainty. My son couldn't possibly have done that. "All parents say that." The taller officer's face twisted into an expression of weary dismissal, as if he'd heard the same protest 1,000 times before. But I wasn't like other parents protesting their child's innocence. I had irrefutable proof. My hands clenched into fists at my sides as I prepared to explain exactly why these men were wrong, why their presence at my door made no sense at all. Because my son Tyler, the boy they claimed had been seen running away with stolen money, hadn't taken a single step in over 8 months. Part 2. The Truth Revealed. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "My son is bedridden," I said, my voice stronger now. "He has been since the accident 8 months ago." The officers exchanged glances, their confident demeanor faltering for the first time. "Ma'am, we have multiple witnesses." "Then your witnesses are wrong," I cut in, surprising myself with my firmness. "Come see for yourself if you don't believe me. But I warn you, if you upset him, you'll have more than just me to answer to." I led them up the stairs, my hand trailing along the wooden banister that now bore scuff marks from Tyler's wheelchair when we first brought him home. Each mark told a story of our adjustment to this new life, of learning, struggling, and ultimately adapting. The hallway light cast long shadows as we approached Tyler's room. Through the partially open door, I could hear the soft whir of his laptop fan. He was probably working on his college applications despite the late hour. "Tyler?" I called out softly, pushing the door open. "We have visitors." My son looked up from his computer screen, his familiar bright smile fading as he saw the uniformed men behind me. Even after 8 months, it still struck me how different his room looked now. The soccer posters still covered the walls, but they shared space with physical therapy schedules and motivational quotes. His beloved cleats sat on a high shelf, carefully preserved like museum pieces. "Mom?" Tyler's voice carried a note of confusion. "What's going on?" I watched the officers take in the scene before them. The hospital-style bed, the wheelchair positioned perfectly within reach, the various medical equipment that had become as familiar to us as furniture. Their faces shifted from suspicion to uncertain, then to something approaching embarrassment. "There seems to be some mistake," the taller officer muttered, his earlier arrogance evaporating. But as I studied their reactions more closely, something felt off. The shorter officer's eyes darted around the room so quickly, and his hand kept twitching toward his belt in a way that didn't seem professional. And when I noticed another detail, their badges didn't catch the light quite right. Tyler must have sensed something too, because he suddenly sat up straighter, his eyes fixed on the shorter officer's face. "Marcus?" he said incredulously. "Marcus Rivera?" The shorter officer flinched as if he'd been struck. The name hit me like a thunderbolt. Marcus Rivera, Tyler's best friend throughout elementary and middle school. The boy who'd spent countless afternoons practicing soccer in our backyard. The same Marcus who disappeared from our lives shortly after Tyler's accident, unable to face his friend's new reality. Marcus's fake, authoritative voice crumbled, revealing the scared young man beneath the disguise. "Tyler, The taller officer grabbed Marcus's arm. "We need to go, now." But Tyler's voice rang out, stronger than I'd heard in months. "Marcus, wait! Don't run away again, please." That plea, filled with 8 months of unspoken pain and longing, stopped Marcus in his tracks. His shoulders slumped, and when he turned back to face us, tears were streaming down his face. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry, Tyler. I didn't know. I didn't want to know." Part 3. The past unravels. The truth came pouring out in Tyler's bedroom that night. As Marcus crumpled into the chair by the desk where he and Tyler used to play video games, his accomplice had fled, but Marcus stayed, his fake police uniform suddenly looking as childish as a Halloween costume. "My dad's gambling debts," he explained, his voice hoarse. "They were going to hurt my little sister if we didn't pay. I thought I could figure it out on my own. This was supposed to be my last job." I stood in the doorway, torn between calling the real police and listening to more. But Tyler's face stopped me. He was looking at his old friend with such compassion that it made my heart ache. "Why didn't you tell me?" Tyler asked softly. "Even after this?" He gestured to his legs, still motionless beneath the blanket. Marcus wiped his eyes with his sleeve, smearing the tears across his face. "How could I? You were the star of the team, Tyler. You had everything going for you. And then that drunk driver. I couldn't handle seeing you like this. And then my family's problems started, and I kept running away." The mention of the accident brought it all flooding back. The late-night phone call, the endless hospital corridors, the doctors with their gentle but firm explanations about spinal cord injuries. Tyler had been walking home from soccer practice when it happened. The drunk driver had mounted the curb, and in a split second, our lives had changed forever. But Tyler had faced it all with remarkable courage. Even now, he was showing that same strength as he looked at his troubled friend. "Remember when we were 10? Tyler asked, a small smile playing at his lips. "And you broke my favorite soccer ball?" Marcus let out a wet laugh. "You wouldn't talk to me for a week. Until you showed up at my door with your piggy bank," Tyler continued. "You'd smashed it open to buy me a new ball." "It wasn't even the right size," Marcus mumbled. "But you tried to make it right," Tyler said firmly. "That's what matters. That's what you need to do now." I watched this exchange with growing amazement. My son, who had every right to be angry and bitter, was instead offering his friend a path to redemption. In that moment, I saw him not as my child who needed protection, but as a young man with wisdom beyond his years. Part 4. A new beginning. That night changed everything. After hours of talking, crying, and finally planning, Marcus agreed to turn himself in. I drove him to the police station myself the next morning, while Tyler's father stayed with him. The real police were surprisingly understanding once they heard the whole story, especially given Marcus's age and the circumstances with his family. The weeks that followed were a blur of statements, court appearances, and difficult conversations. Marcus's testimony led to the arrest of the people who had been threatening his family, and with the help of a sympathetic judge, he received a relatively light sentence with mandatory counseling. But the most remarkable transformation wasn't happening in the courtroom. It was happening in Tyler's room. Every day he seemed more energized, more determined. He started researching adaptive sports with an intensity I hadn't seen before the accident. "Mom," he called out one evening, his laptop balanced on his knees. "Did you know there's a whole league for power wheelchair soccer?" I was folding laundry nearby and I looked up to see his eyes shining with excitement. "Really?" "Yeah, and there's a team right here in the city. Look." He turned the screen toward me, showing a video of players in specialized wheelchairs maneuvering a large ball across a gymnasium floor. The speed and skill involved were impressive. "That looks intense," I said, moving closer to watch. "Those chairs must be specially designed." "They are," Tyler nodded enthusiastically. "They have these guards down the front that let you control and pass the ball. Mom, I want to try it." The determination in his voice reminded me so much of when he was 5 years old, declaring he would become a professional soccer player. Back then, I'd smile and encouraged him, watching as he practiced in our backyard for hours. Now, seeing that same passion rekindled in a new form, how could I respond any differently? "Then let's figure out how to make it happen," I said firmly. Over the next few weeks, our living room became command central for Operation Wheelchair Soccer, as Tyler dubbed it. His father researched equipment suppliers and funding options. I contacted the local team and arranged for Tyler to observe a practice. Even his physical therapist got involved, adjusting his exercises to build the specific strength and control he'd need. The first time Tyler visited the team's practice, I watched from the bleachers with my heart in my throat. He looked so small next to the experienced players in their specialized chairs. But then one of the veteran players approached him, and I saw Tyler's face light up as they talked. Soon, he was asking questions, examining the specialized chairs, and taking notes on his phone. That evening, he couldn't stop talking about it. "Mom, you should have seen how they move. It's like dancing, but with strategy. And Coach Martinez says they're always looking for new players. He said I could start learning in my regular chair while we work on getting a sports chair." Part 5. Letters and Legacy. A month passed quicker than I could have imagined. The morning sun streamed through Tyler's window as I brought in his breakfast tray, the smell of fresh pancakes filling the room. Pancakes had become our Saturday tradition since he'd started his power soccer training. He needed the extra energy for practice days. "Tyler, good morning," I called out cheerfully. His eyes were already open, and he was propped up against his pillows, looking eagerly past the breakfast tray. "Morning, Mom. Did it come today?" I couldn't help but laugh. "You care more about Marcus's letters than my pancakes." "Your pancakes are a close second," he grinned, reaching for the white envelope I pulled from my pocket. It had become our new routine. Marcus wrote regularly from the Juvenile Rehabilitation Center, where he was serving his sentence. Each letter arrived in the same simple white envelope, but they brought so much joy to our house. "What does he say?" I asked, arranging the breakfast tray as Tyler tore open the envelope. Tyler's eyes scanned the pages quickly, his smile growing wider. "He wants to play soccer together. He says he's been staying active there too. They have a recreation program and he's been teaching some of the other guys soccer skills." I sat on the edge of his bed, watching as happiness radiated from my son's face. Next to his bed stood the new sports wheelchair we finally managed to acquire through a combination of insurance, fundraising, and community support. It was a sleek machine, specially designed for power soccer, with a guard on the front that gleamed under the morning light. "You know," Tyler said thoughtfully, lowering the letter, "I've been thinking, once Marcus gets out, maybe he could help coach the Junior Power Soccer League. Coach Martinez was saying they need more volunteers, and Marcus has always been good with kids." I felt tears prick in my eyes, overwhelmed by my son's capacity for forgiveness and vision for the future. Here he was, not just adapting to his new life, but actively working to create opportunities for others, including the friend who had nearly betrayed him. "That's a wonderful idea," I managed to say. "Have you mentioned it to Marcus in your letters?" "Not yet. I wanted to surprise him when he visits next month. The administrator said he can come watch one of my games if he maintains his good behavior." Looking at my son, at his bright eyes and determined smile, at the way he was already mentally composing his next letter to Marcus, I felt a new resolution forming in my own heart. Yes, life had thrown us challenges we never expected. There had been moments of pain, fear, and uncertainty. But watching Tyler face forward and forge ahead had taught me more about courage than all my years of counseling others. He didn't just accept his new reality, he embraced it, reshaped it, and used it to help others. Through him, I learned that resilience isn't about bouncing back to what you were before. It's about growing into something new, and perhaps even stronger. Today, as the morning sun painted Tyler's room in shades of gold and the smell of pancakes mingled with the promise of new beginnings, I felt like we could accomplish anything we set our minds to. After all, we weren't just surviving, we were building something beautiful from the pieces life had given us. Tyler was already reaching for his phone, probably to text his teammates about practice later. The letter from Marcus lay on his lap, a bridge between past and future. Part 6. The Game. The day of Tyler's first official power soccer game arrived with a kind of perfect autumn morning that reminded me of his old soccer matches. The gymnasium at the community center was already buzzing with activity when we arrived. Families filled the bleachers, and players in their specialized chairs were warming up on the court. Nervous? I asked Tyler, as his father helped him transfer into a sports chair. A little, he admitted, adjusting his position, but mostly excited. Coach Martinez says I'm starting today. The transformation in Tyler over the past few months had been remarkable. The hours of practice had built not just skill, but confidence. He'd learned to maneuver his chair with precision, mastering the art of using the front guard to control the ball. More than that, he'd found a new community, one that understood both his challenges and his determination. As Tyler moved onto the court to join his teammates for warm-ups, I noticed a commotion near the gymnasium entrance. There, accompanied by a youth rehabilitation center supervisor, stood Marcus. Tyler spotted him too, and his face lit up with joy. "You made it," he called out, maneuvering his chair toward his friend. Marcus looked different in his rehabilitation center uniform. Younger somehow, but also more centered. He walked over to Tyler, and I watched as the two friends embraced awkwardly but warmly. "Wouldn't miss it," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. "Your letter's about all this. I had to see it for myself." Coach Martinez approached them, and I saw Tyler making introductions. Soon, Marcus was sitting on the team bench, getting a crash course in power soccer rules from one of the assistant coaches. The game itself was a revelation. I'd seen Tyler practice, but this was different. The speed and intensity were incredible. Specialized chairs whirring across the court, the hollow thunk of the ball against guards, the coordinated movements of teammates who communicated with glances and quick calls. Tyler scored his first goal in the second quarter, a perfectly timed strike that sent the oversized ball rocketing past the opposing team's defense. The crowd erupted, but no cheer was louder than Marcus's. I glanced over to see him on his feet, punching the air in celebration, looking for all the world like the excited kid who used to cheer Tyler's goals on the soccer field years ago. During halftime, I overheard Tyler talking to Marcus near the water cooler. "So, what do you think?" Tyler asked, taking a drink from his water bottle. "It's amazing," Marcus replied honestly. "Different from regular soccer, but the strategy, the teamwork, it's all there. And you're good, Tyler, really good." "Thanks," Tyler grinned. "You know, we could use another assistant coach for the junior program we're starting. Once you're out, I mean. Coach Martinez already said he'd be interested." I watched Marcus's face cycle through surprise, hope, and determination. "You trust me with that?" "Who better?" Tyler said simply. "You understand both sides of the game, plus you always were a better teacher than player." "Hey," Marcus laughed, and for a moment they were just two friends sharing a joke, all the pain and complications of the past year falling away. Tyler's team won the game, though the score seemed almost secondary to the spirit of community that filled the gymnasium. Afterward, there was a small celebration with pizza and soda, and I watched as Tyler introduced Marcus to his teammates, each of whom welcomed him without hesitation. As we drove home that evening, with Tyler's first game medal hanging from his chair and plans for the junior program already taking shape, I felt a profound sense of peace. Here, in that quiet moment of an ordinary Saturday evening, I saw our story for what it truly was. Not a tale of loss and limitation, but one of love, forgiveness, and the endless possibilities that come when we dare to move forward together. Through all the unexpected turns our lives had taken, the accident, the fake police visit, the revelations and reconciliations, we had found not just resilience, but growth. Tyler wasn't just surviving, he was thriving, creating ripples of positive change that would touch Marcus's life, the lives of future young players, and countless others we might never even know about. Part 7. Ripples of Change. 6 months after Tyler's first game, I stood in the doorway of the community center gymnasium, watching as he demonstrated passing techniques to a group of young players. The junior power soccer program had grown beyond our wildest expectations, with families driving from 3 neighboring counties to participate. "Mrs. Thompson?" A soft voice drew my attention. I turned to find Maria Rodriguez, mother of our youngest player, 10-year-old Luis. "I wanted to thank you and Tyler. Before finding this program, Luis hadn't smiled in months after his accident. Now he talks about nothing else but power soccer." I squeezed her hand, remembering those dark days after Tyler's accident all too well. Tyler was the same way. Sometimes we just need to find a new path forward. On the court, Tyler was working with Luis, patiently demonstrating how to position his chair for better ball control. The boy's face was scrunched in concentration as he mimicked Tyler's movements. When he successfully completed a pass, Tyler's cheer of encouragement echoed through the gymnasium. Marcus, now released from the rehabilitation center and serving as assistant coach, was working with another group of players at the far end of the court. He'd thrown himself into the role with remarkable dedication, drawing on his experience both as a former soccer player and as someone who'd learned the hard way about making choices and facing consequences. "Keep your guard parallel to the ground, Jamie," Marcus called out to one of the players. "That's it. Much better control." The transformation in Marcus was just as remarkable as Tyler's. Working with the young players seemed to have given him a sense of purpose. He'd enroll in community college courses in sports management, determined to make coaching his career. After practice, as parents helped their children transfer back to their everyday chairs, I overheard Tyler and Marcus talking quietly. "Remember when we thought soccer was just about winning games?" Tyler asked, adjusting his chair's position. Marcus looked up from where he was storing equipment. "Yeah, we were so focused on scoring goals and making the varsity team. This is different." "Good different?" "The best kind." Marcus smiled. "When Luis made that first successful pass today, did you see his face? That's worth more than any trophy." Tyler nodded, his expression thoughtful. "You know, I've been thinking about expanding the program. Coach Martinez says there's interest in starting teams in other districts. We could help them set up, maybe organize some friendly tournaments." "Always thinking big, huh?" Marcus grinned. "Just like when you convinced me we could build that treehouse in 6th grade. Hey, we managed it, even if it did collapse after 2 days. They both laughed, and I marveled at how their friendship had not just survived, but grown stronger through adversity. They were no longer just the soccer-obsessed boys I remembered. They had become young men with vision and purpose. Later that evening, as we were packing up to leave, Coach Martinez pulled me aside. "Sarah, I wanted you to know, the State Adaptive Sports Association is interested in our program. They want Tyler and Marcus to speak at their annual conference about youth engagement in adaptive sports." Pride swelled in my chest. "That's wonderful. When is it?" "Next month in Columbus. They're particularly interested in how we've integrated former traditional sports players as coaches. Marcus's perspective could be valuable for other programs." As we drove home that night, with Tyler chattering excitedly about the conference and his ideas for program expansion, I thought about that terrifying night when the fake police officers had appeared at our door. What had seemed like one of the darkest moments of our lives had somehow led to this, to growth, to purpose, to a vision of making sports accessible to everyone. "Mom?" Tyler's voice interrupted my thoughts. "Do you think Dad could help me put together a presentation for the conference? I want to show how power soccer isn't just about playing a sport. It's about building a community." I glanced in the rearview mirror at my son. This amazing young man who had taken his own challenge and transformed it into an opportunity to help others. I think that's a wonderful idea, honey. And you know what? I think you're the perfect person to tell that story. Because that's what our journey had become. A story of hope, of redemption, and of the incredible things that can happen when we refuse to let adversity define us. It was a story of a mother and son, of friends lost and found, and a community coming together to support each other. But most of all, it was a story about discovering that sometimes life's greatest challenges can lead to our true purpose.